My name is Sarah, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa, so lots of like snow and corn. I'm a gap year student right now, but next year I'll be going to Eckerd College, which is in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Knowing that you're the only person on the ship with your experience, how do you find ways to fit in?
I love that question. Okay, I feel like at the beginning of this voyage, I was a lot more nervous about finding friends and like finding my people, but I feel like everybody here has been so welcoming and kind that you just kind of like gravitate towards people, and like as soon as you start like sharing your stories and experiences, like you just start to learn how much you have in common with other people, and I feel like that's been a really great way to make friends.
How have you contributed to the shipboard community?
Yeah, so I am part of Feminist Club. I'm part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I'm also part of the LGBTQ+ affinity group. I also helped work on World X, which was an event that we did about celebrating people's identities around the ship. And so I feel like all of those types of groups and just celebratory spaces have been really great, and I hope that that's helped provide like a safe space for lots of people on board.
Have you been gravitating towards others who are similar to you, and have you been open and engaged in meeting new people?
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning, there was definitely a lot more fear in meeting new people. But slowly but surely, as I began to get more comfortable being on the ship, I began to kind of branch out a lot more with the people I've met. Right now, most of my friends on board are international students, which I think is really cool, and I've been able to meet a lot of different people and a lot of different things. And that's been one of my favorite parts about the voyage so far. So I feel like it's been really great to be able to like branch out in my friendships.
How do you define an international student, and do you consider yourself to be an international student?
I don't consider myself an international student. I believe like in the SAS point of view, an international student is considered somebody who isn't from the States. But I feel like also that's kind of an interesting point of view. I get that that's considered since SAS is ran through a college from the US, that's why it's considered that way. But I also feel like that's kind of a really interesting point of view, since we're going around to all these places, and specifically right now we're doing a voyage in Europe, and many of these European students are like the international students. So I think that's just really interesting to me. That's something that I've thought about a
lot. Do you have an outlet to express yourself on the ship? Do you feel seen and heard?
Yeah, I feel like, as I mentioned earlier, with Feminist Club, with the LGBTQ+ affinity group, with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, all of those spaces have been so welcoming and inclusive, and that's something that's meant a lot to me and has made me feel much more welcome and celebrated on board. And also the friends I've made have been just really welcoming and really wonderful, and that's made me feel really safe and heard on board.
How have you reassessed or assessed the privileges you had before arriving on the ship?
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I've thought about a lot on board. One, just being on SAS is such a privilege in and of itself, being able to travel to all of these amazing places, and on board I feel like it's such a safe and welcoming environment, and that's such a privilege in and of itself. And also just being able to talk to so many people from so many different backgrounds has also been a really great way to be able to assess my own privilege back home.
Okay, so since you're a gap student, how has the transition been to get onto SAS?
The transition has definitely been overwhelming. I feel like this is such a crazy environment already, and then you add in newly being kind of a college student is really strange. And so that was definitely at first something that I struggled with. Figuring out how to get my work done, how to meet so many people, and just being here and traveling around Europe was super weird. But slowly but surely, I think I became a lot more comfortable with that, and I learned a lot more like time management and study skills that helped with that a lot.
How do you manage yourself in a way that's respectable in other countries? What do you do to listen and learn?
Yeah. I feel like the main thing that I've focused on is, as you said, like listening and just talking to people from different countries, listening to their stories, letting them share their experiences, and being open to hearing them has been the number one thing to me. It's also been one of my favorite things about going to these countries is being able to talk to these people, like just sitting in a restaurant or in a bar and being like, just talking to these people from all these different places has been super cool. And it's also been super enlightening and let me learn a lot.
What was the biggest culture shock when you got onto the ship?
Oh, that's a good question. Thinking. I feel like the biggest culture shock for me was honestly just the college experience of things, which I feel like is kind of not the right answer, but as I said, like this is such a crazy environment, and I feel like just having it also be college was like the cherry on top, that I was like, oh my goodness, like this is so crazy and weird right now, and I feel like that was really overwhelming, and I think that was one of the biggest things that kind of like freaked me out at the beginning, for sure.
What has been the most positive thing about semester at CS?
Positive thing? Definitely the friends that I've made. I have learned so much just from my peers and from people around the world who are on this voyage, and that's something that I'm so happy about. Also, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and there are 2 other type 1 diabetics on board who I've been able to become really good friends with, and that has been so wonderful and so cool. Like in global studies in the morning, like talking to my friend, like, oh, this is how my blood sugars were last night, like this is where we at, like that's been so great. So definitely the friends that I've made.
And then my very last question for you. What is one thing you wish you would have heard before embarking on this voyage?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. One thing that I wish I would have heard before embarking on this voyage is to worry less about making friends. That was my biggest fear coming on this voyage, is that I would get here and I would just like sit in a corner and just be like lost. But so quickly people were so kind and so welcoming and like were so willing to be my friends. And that's been so great. Like the first person that like I had dinner with on the very first day is still one of my best friends on the ship. Like, and that's just something I wish I would have known beforehand, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.